From the makers of Danganronpa comes the next big thing from Spike Chunsoft, Master Detective Archives Raincode. The game's relatively unique sense of progression within each chapter is bound to take some folks by surprise. Plus there are some golden rules to success throughout its story that shouldn't be taken for granted. We're covering all of the above and more with the following tips and tricks, so before you board the Amaterasu Express, be sure to bring both your ticket and this guide along for the ride. And our first tip is to leave no stone unturned. It might seem a bit obvious for a game with detective in its title, but hear us out. There may be times when you've pieced enough stuff together both mentally and within the game's narrative beats to move on to another area. Never do so until you've thoroughly investigated every little thing in every available room. Raincode has a feedback loop for this stuff that many other games in its genre do not. You'll gain detective points galore for the things you interact with. Sometimes you'll get a few more detective points from looking at something twice. It's not especially often, and the game rather forecasts it ahead of time when a character recommends reassessing a situation. Raincode kindly informs players about its Labyrinth skills at the start of the first mystery labyrinth, but it's up to you to keep tabs on that going forward. While the skill tree and its equipable talents are rudimentary relative to full-blown stat-driven RPGs, there's still plenty of incentive to tap into it, as the right skills can make otherwise tough obstacles an absolute breeze. An early example of this can be found in the Midsummer Night's feed. It's wise to invest further points into this path, because the fewer solution keys that Shinigami has to, well, let's go with give you.
Here's your solution key!
The fewer variables you'll need to account for at critical junctions in the story. We were pretty tense in our first time hitting the Mystery Labyrinth, which is where a good deal of Raincode's gameplay portions go down. In the Mystery Labyrinth, several sections involve fast-paced question and answer situations, and choosing poorly can result in death.
We're gonna crash!
The good news is that Raincode will go easy on us. Most instances of game over will bring you right back to where the question was asked, and that's usually no more than a moment or two behind you, so sometimes it's just a matter of seconds. Who said Shinigami isn't fair when it counts?
Ready, Master?
Reasoning deathmatches are the closest that Raincode veers into traditional RPG fighting, and they bring their own twists and turns to the concept. You'll be dodging and slashing sentences while equipping the proper solution keys to slash the correct sentence at the right time. Yeah, it's kind of a lot. While it can be tempting to slash the first thing you see that seems like a flaw in your opponent's reasoning, let their entire dialogue sequence play out once before acting. This will save you a lot of time in the long run, because there will be points at which you're leaning towards a particular statement, only for the game to send you back to the start of the sequence simply because they say something else that's much more incriminating. Once you have the full script, you're in a better position to identify the bit of the conversation that the writers want you to strike. Shinigami puzzles are one of the several different types of obstacles blocking Yuma's path during Mystery Labyrinths. These can be quite tricky, as players have a short amount of time to aim for specific letters in sequence in order to spell out a certain word. Try to do things naturally for a moment, but if you're stumped, start chucking your sword at everything you can see, because the slowness of the barrel is going to mess you up big time if you don't get a move on. After a couple letters worth of guessing, you'll likely have a keener idea of what to look for as well. And our last tip is pretty quick. At the beginning of Raincode, Shinigami will ask you to choose a difficulty. Just know in advance that your answer alters nothing. While we ordinarily wouldn't bother mentioning something so simple, Shinigami is a known trickster, so we weren't 100% sure if she was telling the truth here a little bit. This is just one of the many times that Raincode will break the fourth wall, but perhaps it's one of the most memorable.
To be honest, it's all the same no matter what you pick. I'm your lenient, mean, troublesome, adorable partner, after all.
So there's some advice if you're just getting started in Master Detective Archives Raincode. I've been Luke Gould, and you need to get to work already, because those murders won't solve themselves.